Hey, Matt here. In this video, we're going to go through step 3 in our new budget process, which is to think about your goals. And these will be both long-term and short-term goals. So for step 1, we got all of our accounts listed and figured out how much budgetable money we have. Step 2, we spent time figuring out what obligations we have to pay. So all the things we need to spend our money on. And in this step, we're going to start thinking about the things we want to spend our money on. So this is the fun part of budgeting because you're working to earn this money and you want to use it for things you actually like and enjoy. And that's what we'll be doing in this step. So basically anything that's not a monthly or annual obligation is going to fall under a goal. And that means it can be your long-term goals, which might be more of the typical thing you would think of. So I want to go on a vacation someday. I want to do home renovations at some point. We want a new car. These are some of the bigger ticket items that you might think of as a goal. But they can also be short-term items. They can be an expensive dinner out. Maybe you just haven't been able to go out for dinner in a while and it's just something you'd like to do. And that might not be in 6 months. It might be next week. Maybe that's what you want to do. Or maybe just early next month you want to do it. And it's just something you want to get in your budget and start putting money toward, or just get it funded so that you can go out and enjoy a dinner. Maybe you like to get some books every month. Maybe you have a recurring goal that is relatively short term, but it's still it's something you can plan for over and over again. Maybe you want to have a yearly membership to a museum. Maybe that's just something you enjoy doing. You want to always be able to go anytime you want, and so it's one of your goals to have an annual museum membership. These are all valid goals. They don't have to be big things like vacations or retirement. They can be smaller things. Again, just buying a book. It's a small purchase, but that's one of your goals and how you want to spend your money. You can also think about, we talked about this in the obligations. This is one of those areas where you can think of it either way. If you don't have any money set aside for emergencies, you might want to consider those part of your money goals. And again, I think of them as obligations. I'm obligated to, cover things like a car repair or a home repair, but they could also be a goal. If you don't have emergency funds yet, then that can be a great money goal. Maybe that's the thing you're focused on right now is I want to have a fund set aside just for emergencies. And that's a great goal to have. So think of that as one of your goals if you don't like thinking of it as an obligation. So just a couple tips here for step 3. Remember that your goals are really fluid. So unlike obligations, which are recurring, and you usually can't get out of most of them. I mean, there are some that are going to come and go as life goes on. But for the most part, they are pretty static, and you are going to have to pay those from month to month or year to year. But goals are not like that. These are things you want to do with your money, but you don't have to do them. So you can add goals anytime. You can remove goals if you're not interested in that anymore. And you don't have to feel like, as you're setting up your budget, don't feel like you have any pressure to know every single thing you ever want to spend your money on. These are fun things for the most part. And so you're going to add what you can to the budget, but you might come in tomorrow and say, oh, I just remembered that there's a really interesting movie or there's a really interesting game coming out later in the year, and I really want to do that. Go see it, buy it, whatever. And so I'm going to add that to my budget today. Or, oh, there's this other place that I want to vacation one day. I don't know when that will happen, but it's something I want to do, and you can add that to your budget. So just remember your budget is always flexible. And when it comes to goals, you can add them whenever you want. And if something's no longer a goal, you can always remove it. It's not a problem. If you're having a little trouble getting started with this, it might help to start with your longer term goals. And that might be a way to help the next step, which is going to be prioritizing all of your spending categories. Because when you think about longer term goals, which tend to be larger, bigger ticket items, again, vacations, retirement, just something you usually have to spend more money on, you start, and then when they're further out, you start to think about, maybe, are these shorter term purchases something I really want to do now? Now that I'm writing down and thinking of all these bigger items that I really want down the road, how do I feel about some of these shorter term things that I spend money on? So maybe that works for you, maybe not. But if you're a little bit stuck, that might be a good way to start the process. That's usually the way I do it. I try to think of what are the things we want in the future, and then I'll work my way to today of, well, what are the things we like to spend money on today, and do any of these seem like they're really not that important based on these longer term goals that I have? So those are just a few tips. There's really, this is more of a sandbox. You're really just having fun here, thinking about how you like to spend your money. And so, don't feel like you have to do anything in particular. Just come up with the things you like. Hopefully a few things pop into mind and start there. So as usual, I'm going to jump into YNAB and just show you what this process would look like. It's very similar to step two, but there's a couple of different things we'll look at or different ways of thinking about how we'll add these categories. All right, I have YNAB open now, and I have the budget we've been working on for steps one and two. Um, Previously, we had added our accounts on the left and checked our balances. And then we also went ahead, added categories for our obligations, and then we actually started assigning money to them. And I just want to make sure that it's clear that even though we did go through and assign money to these categories, that doesn't mean this is the final amount that we'll assign. Based on what we do with our goals, and then when we prioritize, we may adjust exactly how much we're assigning to these. For things like bills, we're going to keep them like this because this is just the money that we owe. It's very straightforward. But when we got down into our frequent expenses for groceries, eating out, all of these other things, or we maybe don't know the exact amount we have to spend, we may make some adjustments here to make sure that these are aligning with our priorities. So I just wanted to make that clear here because we did end with just a little bit of money left over. But as we add our goals, we might make some adjustments here to free up some of that money. That's basically what a budget is. You're going to plan out how you'll spend your money, and you may change your perspective on things as you get more and more goals and spending categories into your budget. Okay, so to my point on the tips for this step, I'm going to start with my longer term goals because for me personally, those are more important to me. I like to think about what am I working toward over the long run. And so that's where I like to start. And then I'll come back to some of the things I like to do personally in the short term. So things that I like to just, do on a day-to-day basis or a month-to-month basis. And then I kind of work backwards that way. So I'm going to scroll down here and we have, so again, when we create a budget in YNAB, we have a series of spending category groups that are already created for us. And one of them is goals. So I'm going to start there. If you're creating your own budget in another tool or just using something like a spreadsheet, then of course, this is something you can certainly add to your budget, but the way you organize this is completely up to you. I'm going to stick with what YNAB does and just use a goals category group, and I'll start from there. So the first one here is vacations, which for me is an absolute valid goal. That's something I definitely want to work toward as well. But for me, I don't like to just have a category called vacations. That's to me, that's not specific enough. And I like for goals to be very specific. I want to know exactly where I'm going, exactly what I'm working toward, because that makes it more real. Now, if you don't have a specific vacation spot in mind, it's completely fine to just have vacation as a category. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to put for this first one. So, one of the places I really like to go is Arizona, and specifically a trip to the Grand Canyon. So, that's something I would like to do. And so, I'm going to make it really specific and say, okay, that's a trip that I would like to take. And I'm going to follow what we talked about in the previous video in step two, and I'm going to put a little emoji there just to spruce things up a little bit. Okay, so I got my first goal there, my first real goal, which is to go to the Grand Canyon. Okay, I also would like to take a trip to Europe one day. I don't know when that would happen. This is definitely a more in the future type of goal. So going to the Grand Canyon, that's something that I would like to do whenever I can. So if that's within the next year, great. If it's maybe in 2 or 3 years, great. Doing a huge trip like Europe, especially when I have children, that's going to take some more planning. So probably a little farther in the future. But they're both completely valid goals and things I want to capture in my budget, really, regardless of how far away they are. Okay, so I've got a couple of trips in there for me. YNAB also includes an education goal, which can mean different things. So to me, it means I'm done with my education for now. So to me, this means my children's education. And so that's how I would categorize this. Well, category. That's what I would call it. But for you, you might be wanting to go back to school, or maybe you're saving to go to school. Whatever it is, that's what this category can mean to you. So if you have any plans in terms of education, you can use this category. You can add multiple categories if you have different things that you want to do. Again, it's completely up to you. So I'm going to call this, I'll just call this college savings because that's basically what we'll be doing. So for us personally, we save in 529 accounts for our children, or at least try to. And so that's what this means to me. So I'm going to put this one up at the top actually, because that one's probably one of my top priorities. I already know this, and we'll come back to prioritizing later, but I kind of know this right now, so that's going to go up to the top of that. All right, and then we have a home improvement category. I don't have anything specific in mind, although you know what, I probably would like to do a little work on our yard at some point for our home. So maybe I'll put something in here like a yard refresh. So maybe kind of doing some new things in the yard. I don't know specifically what that will be yet, but I'll just throw a little emoji in there. And then I have a couple of goals ready to go. Um, I do have other goals in mind, but and so these are, I'm thinking a little bit more long term. Um, so if I have anything else in mind, I would want to add that in here as well. So again, these are for me this goals category, and maybe I'll actually rename it to help me. But this goals category, I'm going to call it long-term goals. So these are things that are not going to happen in the immediate future, but I'm definitely going to start planning for them. So again, you can add as many of these as you want. I think in my actual budget, I may have 15 to 20 of these, and they can be as realistic or pie in the sky as you like. So if you say something like, I just, I don't know, one day I'd like to have a home on a lake. There's 0% chance that can happen right now. There's absolutely no way that's possible. But I don't know, 20 years from now, who knows? It's just something I want to keep in mind and just have out there as something I want to do. And I know, like for me, for example, I'd like to one day do a like a tour of the United States in an RV. And I have no idea if that would ever actually happen or not, but it's just something I like to put in the budget as just this thing that I know that I want to do. It might never happen, but it's just something I'm going to document in here. So I just kind of put like US tour, I think is the way I call it. Um, and then I'll just put like a camp, like a tent or something, something like that. Kind of like go around the United States just camping in different places. That's just kind of a pie in the sky goal for me. And but I'm still going to capture that in here. Again, no matter how unrealistic you think it is, throw it in the budget. Just know that it's something you thought of, and it's something you may want to do in the future, and you can think about putting some money toward it in your budget. If you don't put it in here, or if you don't have a budget, these are just things that come into mind and then we forget about them. We never come back to them because it just seems so crazy that we'll never do it. But when it's in your budget, it's always reminding you, oh, that's right. Yeah, I would like to do a tour of the United States. That would be really cool. Okay, well, I don't know. Let me throw 50 bucks in there. And, over time, over the years, that can start to build up. So, okay, I'll get off my soapbox on goals here. But again, just think of your long-term goals, big or small, and realistic or not realistic, just get them into your budget. Now I'm going to come back to the quality of life category, which we skipped over in step two because these aren't obligations. This to me goes hand in hand with the frequent category we have here. I call these something a little different in my actual budget. But to me, frequent means these are just expenses we make often. And the quality of life are things that we like to do, and they may be frequent, they may be infrequent, but these are just things that we like to do. But they're not like large savings goals that we have to meet. These are going to be smaller, probably more frequent type goals that we're going to have in our budget. And most of the time, at least for me, these are going to be simple things. Like the first one here is a great example. Hobbies. Do you have hobbies? Are there things that you like to do? Do you like to craft? Do you like to paint? Do you like to play games? That's hobbies. And again, this is an area where you can get as specific or generic as you like. If you want to call out specific things that you like to do, put them in here as specific. If you just have various hobbies and you just want to put some money aside for them, whatever, if you're somebody like me that kind of goes from one hobby to the next, then maybe it makes sense to just have a more generic hobbies category. If you're somebody who's very into specific hobbies, if you like to, work on cars, if you like to read and you do that consistently, then maybe it makes more sense to call something out here. So for now, I'm going to leave hobbies as just a standalone category, just as it is. I'm going to put like a puzzle thing in here. I don't know. Puzzles could be a hobby, kind of fits with games, that type of thing. Um, you know, again. You might put something like a paintbrush, whatever works for you. So I'm going to leave it as generic. It's just, whatever is interesting me this current month, that's what I'm going to use my hobbies money for. Okay, the next one is entertainment, and I also have this one in my budget. I feel like this is a pretty good one because throughout the month we're going to have certain things that we do that are just for entertainment. There's no other real meaning behind it. It doesn't mean, I might go see a movie this month with my kids, but I'm not really a movie person. I'm not going to go see movies every month, or I don't really look forward to movies coming out and going to see them. But it's something I might do. I might go miniature golfing. Um, I don't know. We might just go take a little trip somewhere and just go see something. And those things I just consider entertainment. And by trip, I mean like, a half hour trip somewhere. So this is something I keep in my budget, and I again like to keep this one generic. So I put popcorn because I think of movies when I think of entertainment. But I like to keep this one generic because I don't really know what we're going to do for entertainment in the month, and that's why this category is so difficult to predict. It's very difficult to put a specific price on entertainment. This month you might do very little. Maybe like I said, do some mini golfing, go to a movie. It's like $75 for the month, but maybe you decide, oh, you know what, we have this really cool thing we want to do, but wow, is it expensive? And it's like $400 for this month, and yikes. So it's, that can be a difficult category to predict, but I do like to keep entertainment in there. So I guess what I'm saying is I feel like most people are going to have hobbies and entertainment as short-term goals. We want to spend money on our hobbies. We want to spend money on entertainment throughout the month. We don't want to go from one month to the next where we literally don't do anything except pay our bills. I don't think anybody really wants to live that way, if they can help it. So that's what I'm going to put in here. Health and wellness. This might be something like, a gym membership. You could put something like that if you have like a specific thing. If you use like a fitness app, you can maybe make that a category if that's something that you do. I'll just say, sure, I do a fitness app, and let's see. I think there's like a guy lifting weights or something. Yeah, there we go. Oh, or some gymnastics. Oh, that's kind of a cool one. All right, we'll pick that one, and we'll put that in there. Oh, that's kind of hard to see, but anyway. So if you have do something like that, like a fitness app, you can put that in there. Um, so a couple of other things that I think about. I have one in our. If you have children, we have one for allowances. So if we give our kids an allowance on the week, if they earn it, we should say. I'll just put a category in here to capture that we're giving the kids some allowance money, and that is a goal for us. We want to motivate the kids to help around the house a little bit, so we're going to capture that as an allowance category. I did one that's not in here, although maybe it's infrequent. Did I put it in frequent? I did not. So I'm going to put clothes in here, which clothes you could think of as an obligation because you are going to have to buy clothes. But it's also one of those things that could be a goal because, yes, you do need clothes and you could buy the cheapest, most basic clothes ever. And maybe that's good enough for you. Maybe you don't care. You're a very utilitarian person. I'm not calling anyone out here, but me. That's how I am. I don't really care about clothes. So for me, clothes are 100% an obligation, but in my family, that's not how everybody feels. So for me, clothes is a frequent expense. It's something that I know we're going to buy almost every single month. We're going to have to buy something. So I'm going to put this here in frequent rather than quality of life, because I feel this is just one of those things you're going to have to buy at some point. But as we'll come back to in step 4, sometimes your obligations or just things you have to do or feel like you have to do can also be goals. So yes, clothing might be an obligation you have to pay and you're going to just do it every month, but it might also be something you really like. You enjoy buying a little bit more expensive clothes or more stylish clothes. And so that's a goal and something you're more willing to spend your money on. Groceries is another one. I think I mentioned before that, yeah, you have to buy groceries, but maybe you really love cooking. And so you're willing to spend more on groceries, to make better dishes, to make more, elaborate dishes. That just might be something you like to do. So just keep that in mind that your goals and obligations kind of mix, and they can overlap actually in some cases. Okay, so hopefully I've given enough examples here. You know, again, the process of building this into your budget is really no different than step 2. You're just adding categories to your budget, and you can also do the same thing we did here, which was talk about how you're grouping these together. So we have some for quality of life. So again, I would consider these things that I want to do. These are things I want to spend my money on, but I don't have to spend my money on these. Like, or I guess I should say, I may not spend this money. These are things that I want to do, but I may not do. Whereas clothing is something that I don't necessarily, for me, I don't necessarily want to do it, but you might. So you might say, yeah, clothes are really important to me. But whether they are or not, they're going to be a frequent expense. They're just something I know is going to come up. Maybe there's a month we don't buy clothes, but chances are we're going to buy them. So they're going to go in my frequent category. So again, think about that. Like, how do you like to organize these categories? Again, don't get hung up on it, but it is helpful just to think a little bit about is, are clothes something that we're going to do frequently, or are they a really rare occurrence for us? And maybe try to organize the categories that way. Okay, just one other thing I'll do here. So for my family, because we have the children, there are a lot of activities that are going on, and I don't have that captured here in the budget. It could be a non-monthly, it could be a quality of life because it is something we want to do. We want the kids to be able to do some activities if they desire. But I'm actually going to break this out into its own category group because I just feel like these happen often enough and they're kind of a separate thing. They're kid specific most of the time. So I'm going to make my own category group here just for these. So I'm going to call these activities. And I'm actually going to call them recurring activities because these are things that are happening. We sign up for them or whatever, but they're things that are going to happen over and over again. Entertainment would be more of the one time type of activities. So we have one who likes to do swimming. We have one who likes to do dance. And we have one who likes to do flag football. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in here. And I forgot my emojis, but I'll just go ahead and skip those for now. And then my wife likes to play tennis and join a group for that. So we're going to capture that one in there as well. So these are things I would capture in here. Again, they're 100% wants. These are things people want to do, and we obviously could not skip them if we had to. If we need to save some money. So that's what I'll put in there. Again, just for me, that warrants another group. I would like to see these broken out into groups and just see exactly how much money we're spending on activities, and then we can maybe make some decisions from there. But that's the way I want to see it, and this is totally personal. So if you see that and you're like, oh no, activities, they're just frequent expenses for us. They're just things we do. Or, well, those are quality of life. Those are things that, maybe we're going to do, but we really have to think about them because they really are just a discretionary expense. Everybody feels differently about these things. So just think about how you would like to do it and you can organize your budget accordingly. So I hope I've given you enough examples here for this to make sense. Um, again, this is the fun part. So hopefully the wheels are turning and you really are adding a lot of categories in here, short term, medium term, long term, everything in between. Just get it all in the budget. And remember, you can always come back in here and add some things. So once we're done with this, this is really where budgeting begins. Now that we've got our goals and our obligations in our budget, this is where the planning starts to take place. So we did start some planning by funding our obligations, but now we're going to start planning in accordance with our priorities. So it's not just, well, we fund our obligations and then we try to put some money toward goals. Now it's, which of these things are the most important to me? Which are the things that, yes, I know I have to spend money on some of these things, but which of the other things are so important to me that they would be my first place to put extra money that I have left over? And that's a step you're going to repeat constantly. So once you get this part done, you begin the recurring part of budgeting, which is prioritizing, assigning money, and then making this a habit. And so those are the next two steps we're going to go through. So until then, have a great day.